When I was a little kid, my grandmother used to work in wealthy homes in Mississippi, and she came home with a fashion magazine. And I don't think I was even 12 years old. I know I was a kid, first grade or something like that. And I flipped through the magazine, and I was amazed that this was a magazine that only had fashion in it.
And those magazines became an inspiration for Patrick, who asked his grandmother how come there were no black people in those magazines. He decided that he would be a designer who would change that.
Patrick Kelly.
High fashion does not bring to mind words like inexpensive, fun, and certainly not Mississippi. But that was all before Patrick Kelly.
Patrick knew where he wanted to be. I want to be Yves Saint Laurent. I want to be Paco Rabanne.
Patrick was mostly self-taught.
He was making up stuff as we go. At 3 o'clock in the morning, we were still shooting pictures.
Patrick Kelly is the ringmaster. In his hands, the basic dress takes on the elements of what Time magazine once called the technicolor splendor of a Minnelli musical.
The models, everybody loved Patrick.
We had Grace Jones, Iman, and you had Naomi Campbell. From Mississippi to Paris, and everything in between.
FIT is honored to welcome Patrick Kelly, the American Inspired.
I hope people walk away from this exhibition feeling joy. Patrick always said, I want my clothes to make you smile, and I hope people come through here and leave smiling and thinking critically about his fashion practices. What I most appreciate is his ability to take seemingly disparate elements and form them into new, unique wholes. So he could reference in a single collection the Eiffel Tower, the American West, Jessica Rabbit, and Nancy Cunard, and somehow it all comes together and makes total sense because it's the way he's filtered it into a single vision.
We cannot forget Patrick's Mississippi background in the 50s and the 60s when looking at Patrick's career, personality, and fashion.
He lived in a black neighborhood. He went to black schools. We were Negroes and colored in those days.
Vicksburg, Mississippi was the most racist and violent state in this country. Patrick would describe in interviews protesting when friends were killed in Vicksburg, receiving hate mail from the KKK.
There was no opportunity for young black men, but he kept his bright spirit throughout all of that.
He knew he wasn't going to stay in Vicksburg. He was going to get the hell out of there. And he did. He went to Atlanta.
Patrick Kelly moved to Atlanta to try his hand working as an independent designer. He did a variety of things to get himself going. He made clothes for friends. He attended the Ebony Fashion Fair and made very important contacts there in 1970. He also worked as a volunteer dressing windows at Yves Saint Laurent's Rive Gauche boutique.
He wanted to touch, to feel, to be in contact with the designs that he revered, that he loved.
You know, he'd go to the department stores and look inside and outside and see what those dresses were made of.
I know in speaking to colleagues and friends of his that it wasn't easy being in Atlanta. He didn't have the resources necessarily to make the clothes he wanted to make. One friend many years ago described he didn't have the best sewing skills, him having a fit of frustration and throwing the sewing machine out the window of his apartment. He did make quite a splash in Atlanta and was very successful. There's a lot of press in Atlanta in the period talking about presentations of clothes from the fabulous Patrick Kelly. And I do think if he had stayed in Atlanta, he would have been very successful there as a designer, but he had bigger sights and dreams. Patrick Kelly moved to New York in 1978 to study at Parsons School of Design. He had received a scholarship from the school.
The head of Parsons, thinking that Patrick Kelly was a good old Irishman, realizing what the real Patrick Kelly was, told him that Parson was not for people like him and rescinded his scholarship.
The years before he got to Paris, before he became so big, he just talked about the struggles he had. And he also talked about the people that had the negativity that said, "You're wasting your time, you ain't gonna make it, why even try?"
During his years in New York, he told me that a few times, trying to get jobs in design houses, he would create a whole portfolio of these sketches that he thought were in the vein of that designer's style, and being sent to the service elevator, treated as a messenger boy.
So Pat Cleveland had met him a little bit earlier. In the 1970s, they reconnected in New York, and she saw that he was really frustrated and really quite depressed that New York wasn't working out for him.
I had been traveling all through Europe and living in Paris and having a wonderful time outside of New York. And I realized I had to let him understand that this is not the end of the world. This is not the only place where you should be. You should be in Paris, Patrick. You need to be in Paris. And he said to me, "I will go to Paris, but I have no way to get there." And I thought to myself, all the people who have helped me and all the people who have paid it forward so that I could have what I have, maybe it's my turn to do this thing. And I got on the phone with the agent, and I ordered a first-class ticket for him to go to Paris.
His idol is Josephine Baker. Like her, he came to Paris with nothing but talent.
Going to Paris, he built this amazing community, one, by very astutely studying the fashion magazines and the fashion press to know who was the who's who that he needed to know to build his brand and his company. Two, by a bit of luck in that he was able to meet a very important contact on the plane to Paris, which secured him a job at the Palace nightclub, which was the equivalent of, Studio 54 in New York.
When I met Patrick in the beginning, I met him through Larry Vickers. And Larry was doing a show with 24 dancers, and Larry had hired Patrick to design the costumes for it. So he said, "I want you to meet Patrick so you can help him with these costumes." So he had me come to the Palace to meet Patrick. Patrick came in through the balcony, and I was sitting down in the audience in the theater, and he looked down at me and he said, "Hey, child." And I said, "Hey." And we started working. We were young creators looking for our way. When we went out to shop for fabrics or food or whatever we did, he had little tricks so that we could always get something for a better price.
Patrick's first few years in Paris involved a lot of hustling.
Like a struggling artist, he started in the street.
He did sell one-seam coats on the streets of Paris.
And you'd made these dresses in your hotel room,
in my
right?
hotel room, or I would borrow sewing machines from different people.
And then you just hung them right here?
Oh, yeah.
This was illegal, what you were doing.
It was a bit illegal.
It wasn't all easy. It wasn't all like Patrick Kelly just arrived and the French loved him and I was out there kicking, baby.
Some of his earliest and most successful designs are the tube dresses, which were bolts of tubular fabric to which he cut out a neckline and arm's eyes and put on little embellishments, and he would have his models wear them around Paris, becoming these living advertisements of his vision.
We would go out to the Palace and club set. Patrick would say, "Liz, we're just gonna go over here for a few minutes. They gotta see us. They have to always see us."
Eric Darnell Pritchard, who's Patrick Kelly's biographer, often says that Patrick built communities and villages around him wherever he went. He did that while he was living in Atlanta. He built a community around him there. He was deeply connected to the club scene in New York City, in the same milieu as people like Keith Haring. And then by building a community of contacts with models, with other fashion professionals, and particularly looking to foster and support Black models and Black women.
Patrick always opened up his apartment for people to stay.
It was a hangout that African-American models who came to Paris knew they would always find a meal and dresses to be made for them by one Patrick Kelly.
So anybody who came to Paris that could help him sewing or going to the market, helping us cook or clean or anything he wanted, that was one of our little children, as he would say.
He was somebody who I think understood that people had helped him, like Pat Cleveland, giving him the one-way ticket to Paris to get him there, and he paid it forward, tenfold to anyone he encountered.
Oh my God, I haven't seen that in a long time. You have to understand, these were the 80s. Just like the 60s, if you remember everything, you didn't really live them. You didn't have to ask him to smile this way. But the thing is just like, it's such a big smile, but it's a real smile. He's not acting. There's some creative people you can work with. It has to go through anxiety, and pain. Things have to be difficult. With Patrick, it's just like, okay, we're here, we make the best of it and we have fun.
Once Patrick started getting into a proper studio with proper people who knew how to drape and make patterns and sew for him, things started to evolve in a positive way. He could tell somebody what he wants and they would make it into a reality.
Mississippi-born Patrick Kelly is winning everyone's hearts in Paris. In a few moments, we'll see his fun, whimsical designs, and you'll see why.
He always opened up his show. He'd come out in his overalls, and then he would spray a heart. Oh, he would spray this beautiful heart. That started the show.
The energy and spirit that Patrick Kelly brings to fashion starts backstage. He begins every show with a moment of prayer.
I hope we can generate some kind of vibe to get to them, the people that are sick, the people who don't even have what we have and all of that. We got everything we need, each other.
Yeah! The music was hot, always black music, and he always ended with Aretha Franklin singing gospel. You went lifted. He lifted you up.
A few years ago, a young American moved from Mississippi to Paris. He had a dream. He wanted to join the ranks of the great French designers. And Patrick Kelly is the first American designer ever admitted to the inner shrine of French fashion, Le Chambre Syndicale.
The reason why the Chambre Syndicale wanted Patrick because he had talent. He showed them dresses, the likes of which they hadn't seen before. Those old designers were happy to see this young black man who had talent.
He was the first ever American to be accepted into this syndicate in which all the major designers that wanted to have a career in Paris were members.
We knew before they announced to us because it was like everybody was talking in the grapevine, So when we first heard, we tried not to be too excited because we didn't have the official. And then Mr. Mouclier called us, and we were like screaming and shouting because we were like the first time, like you said, an American, a black, somebody who liked me. It was a big honor to be in the realms of Madame Gray and Mr. Saint Laurent, Sonia Raquel, and people like that.
Patrick Kelly was not operating in isolation. He was part of a community of black, often gay creatives that were shaping culture in ways that defied convention.
Maya Angelou told me, if you put poison in a crystal bottle, it'll still be poison. Patrick didn't feel that. He felt that by keeping alive the feeling that something is poisonous, you keep alive the poison in that thing.
Mr. Kelly explored perhaps one of the most provocative forms of iconography in his work via the Gollywog, a caricature of black identity and physicality, sort of steeped in the culture of racist cartoons and advertising depictions.
He is exploring systemic racism, his experiences with racism and racialized imagery through this lens of joy and love. The material was something that he displayed very openly in his atelier in Paris. He talked a lot about how it inspired his design process and some of the imagery he was referencing. But I think for him, there was this real power in resting with the imagery to tell his own story about his experience as being a black man in the world. He basically says, you know, people get really upset that I use this imagery. He's like, but for me, it makes me think of my grandmother. And I do wonder sometimes if that connection to family and the way he experienced things is something that also gives him the ability to have that joy and love. Being surrounded by really strong women who raised him, who fostered his love of fashion, fostered his love of art, encouraged him to be educated and to forge his own path.
Dave Castro, Michael DeSantis, Alphonse De Laura.
They called it the gay plague. They had so many different crazy names for it. And little by little, we started to see people that we know start to look weak. They got skinny. They started getting blotches on them. Their eyes started to crisscross. And we knew something was wrong, but we didn't know what it was.
5 December 1989. Dear Audrey, thank you for your beautiful card. Don't worry, I'm doing much better. Take care. Love, Patrick.
The virus took a big toll on him. A lot of us wanted to say, oh, everything is gonna be all right. But little by little, things didn't get better. If anything, they got worse.
I must say the period from August through Patrick's death on January 1st, 1990, is a blur in my mind. I lived with Patrick in the hospital throughout that period, sleeping on a bunk bed at his side.
When New Year's came around, that was it for him. And I was on my way to the hospital, and I think I had made some food because he would always say, Liz, make me some food, because this hospital food is no good. I want something that you make. So I would make food and bring it to him. But this day, I was on my way to the hospital on New Year's Day, and I was on the bus, and all of a sudden, I felt really good, and I jumped up and I said, yay, just like that. And when I got to the hospital, I was walking, feeling so good, and Bjorn's mother came out saying, that's it, he's gone. So whatever happened, when he passed me, I got the pleasure of life.
Well, I was devastated.
I hope when they think about me, they think about being happy, because there's so much sadness in the world. And if you can stick a button on something or a funny hat, I'm the one for you.
There were no opportunities for him, but he made it anyway.
He said, child, we're gonna make it one way or another. Because he always used that expression, child, we're gonna do it. So we did it. We did the best that we could for what we had at that particular time.
Patrick was unique individual. He was one of a kind.
He evolved from a little young American from Mississippi to a grandmaster of fashion in Paris.
Patrick lived not on the basis of what happened to you outside or around you, but what was really important was what was happening inside of you. And so therefore, with the inquisitiveness and the curiosity of that brilliant kind of insight, he took these little things like his grandmother sewing buttons on his sweaters, and even though the buttons did not match, he saw there a kind of beauty that he plugged into his creative sensibility and produced a style that eventually led him into the haute couture of Paris. Fantastic energy. Patrick took what the dominant society tried to make a stereotype on blacks, eating watermelons, and made that into a charming, beautiful, exciting things that white people wanted to wear.
Often when Patrick was in a room or doing a show, someone who didn't know him would leave and say with astonishment, "There was so much love there." But if he is part of us, if we can contemplate his life and draw out of us some of his qualities just by thinking about him, then we are his future. And he will go on creating and laughing and dancing and bringing people together just as we are in this room.
Patrick Kelly once told a friend that people who die never want those close to them to be sad. So I have a big smile on my face. My name is Audrey Smaltz, and it was my honor to be, and I still am, a friend of Patrick's.
Bjorn, please stand up. Come here. Come here. Come on. Oh, honey. Where's Liz? Where's Miss Liz? Miss Liz? Where is the rest of Patrick's staff? Rashida and the rest of Patrick's staff. Come on, honey. Come on up here. Let's go. That's right. Come on. Married to all of you. Let's go. Come on. Let's go. Come on, honey. Let's go. That's right. Let's go. There you go. Susie, well, come on, honey. Get up. Don't be cute. Come on. Come on, Carol and Larry and Marianne. Let's go. Up here right now. Come on. Let's go. Let's go. That's right. That's right.